Hello, welcome. I'm Masood Raja, and today I briefly want to talk about this tendency to ask for exact answers in humanistic education. And I consider it kind of a legacy of colonial educational system. Now, quite a few times people either comment in my videos or send me a message and they want me to give them an exact definition or an exact answer to a humanistic question. And it sometimes really baffles me because I am not any longer attuned to that mode of thinking. In my research or in my teaching, I never claim to know the exact answers. All I share with my students in our class discussions is usually a range of possible meanings that one can construe from a text. Also, depending on where you're coming from, how you're reading a text, which politics you are in, what is your identity, gendered, ethnic, class, all of those things bear upon an act of reading and make it one way or the other. But I understand this line of questioning where people are expected to know one correct answer and then reproduce it. And this you will encounter pretty much in all post-colonies, wherever, let's say in my experience, the British system of education existed, since the students and scholars were taught to either memorize or learn a given answer and then reproduce it in exams. Those practices somewhat are still being followed in the post-colonies, in India, in Pakistan, and I think not much has changed in terms of going beyond the answers. So let me give you an example, right? If you watch a video on new criticism on my channel, one way of approaching it is, okay, this is one explanation of new criticism. Now let us read its major theorists. Let us see how they explain their terms, explain their vocabularies, and then how do they use it, and then go and perform a new critical reading on a text. That's one way of learning new criticism. Another way of learning new criticism is to just have 10 or 15 bullet points. New critics believed in the supremacy of the text. New critics believed in tensions, in ambiguities, and just memorize that. Now, what that gives you is just a surface point-by-point understanding of what new criticism is, but it doesn't teach you to become a new critic or to understand new criticism on a granular level so that you can apply it. Now, I've seen this tendency here in the United States also when I teach non-English majors, and especially students who are taking sciences, who are science majors, because of course in science you're looking for precise answers. You have a method and you know that every time you apply the method you will reach the same results. And when they bring that consciousness to a humanities class, they have trouble with our open-ended teaching because, they want to know what the answer is so that they can reproduce it and make a good grade, whereas our efforts are geared towards showing them, no, here is how we read texts, and this is the reason we read them a certain way, and this is the reason we read them another way. So ask yourself, if you're in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or in any of the former, at least the British colonies, are your teachers still giving you just 3 or 4 line slides and saying this is what this means, this is what this means, and are expecting you to reproduce that without a thorough and complex understanding of the concepts in discussion? If they are doing that, they are still following the colonial mode of education, which was content-driven, but only content-driven in a sense that you are supposed to memorize the content or just reproduce it in an exam. If your professors are taking it beyond that, asking your opinions about what they are offering you as answers, and are willing to accept different answers, or at least varied answers to the same humanistic questions, then they have modified their pedagogy to a more liberal and progressive and, in my opinion, more enlightened pedagogy. So keep these things in mind, that in humanistic education, in humanities, there never necessarily are single answers. There is usually no correct answer. You can read a text and make certain claims about it based on any theory or based on textual evidence, and for as long as you can prove your point, that is the correct answer. Now, yes, sometimes we can figure out the theme of a novel. We can also figure out, what the plot is. Those are some aspects of a novel or a short story that are pretty self-evident. But beyond that, what it means is debatable, will shift, sometimes, and I'm going against the grain of E.D. Hirsch here. It will shift. What it means to you will shift based on your own location in the world, in terms of your class, gender, sexuality, religion, ethnic origin, and what the text does to you in affective terms, emotionally, will also depend on who you are, what is your inhabited identity. But by and large, in humanities, especially in literary studies, there are no clear-cut, precise answers, and there never is a single answer to the reading of a text, or a single answer to explaining a theory or explaining, a theoretical concept. So please keep this in mind, just when you read or when you are talking to someone about literature or literary studies, that this ambivalence, right, this fluidity is part of the humanistic education, because what we are learning is not just one single way of looking at text, but we are also learning how someone else could read it, how someone else could interpret it, and what are the possible levels of interpretation, possibilities of readings and misreadings of a text. And anytime you are asking for that one single answer to reproduce, remind yourself that that is a legacy of colonial system of education. And if it is still operative in your educational system, that is sad. But then collectively, as students, as scholars, ask yourselves, come together and see how that can be changed. So these are some of my views on certain questions that I get where people want me to pinpoint and precisely give them an answer. And I always try to tell them that all I can give them is my understanding of the text, which is grounded in my own existential realities, my politics, the discourse that I am in. I hope this helps you unpack some of the things that you're reading, or at least helps you further hone and shape your own reading practices and your practices of teaching humanities. That's all. Thank you so much, and as always, peace and love.